Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to episode 2 of Social Media Reacts here on Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady. I am going to run through the weekend that we just had. The Allianz Football Leagues kicked off. Obviously, round 1 across divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4, and in the little LGFA leagues as well. We had rounds 2 for 1, 2, and 3, and we had round 3 for Division 4 as well. Social media reacted as it always does, and we're going to go through some of the best tweets from some of the biggest GA personalities and basically read them out and see how much I agree, disagree, or what my general takes on them are. Before I dive in, this episode is brought to you by Capture Athletics. Massive shout out to the guys over there. If you need any sports gear for the year ahead in 2024, they are the guys to go to. So make sure to check out Capture Athletics. Big thank you to the lads. Now, let's dive in with the content. So obviously, the Allianz Leagues kicked off. Lee Keegan called it good for the soul on the Sunday, on League Sunday. And I think I absolutely agree with Lee. The standard of football was really good. There was a lot of very close matches. There was no real hammerings. The league is really even in terms of the competition between the teams. Every game was pretty, intense apart from Leitrim and Waterford. That was probably the only game that was a bit of a one-sided beatdown. The rest are all pretty tight. And on top of that, there were some terrible performances by some teams and there were some brilliant performances by some teams. And we're going to start off discussing how the Ulster teams really soared this weekend. This tweet is from Ulster GA. An unbeaten weekend for Ulster counties in the opening weekend of the Allianz Ireland official GA National Football Leagues. 8 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses for the 9 teams in action. Ulla Abu. I mean, it's a perfect start for the Ulster teams. And not only do they get those victories, but it's the victories that they did get. Derry went down to Kerry and beat them. Monaghan went to Croke Park and beat Dublin. Like, some outstanding victories there. Donegal beat Cork. You have Cavan going away to Netwatch Cullen Park and beating Kildare. Fermanagh even drawing against Meath and Port Talbot is a very good result. Antrim went away to Limerick and beat them. Like, there's some really, really impressive results. Down beating Wicklow is one that they would have expected to win, but it's undeniably a tricky assignment to win that game. Just all in all, a sensational weekend. And then, of course, Tyrone's victory over Roscommon and Armagh's victory over Louth. 2 massive results in how those league tables will shape up as well. And we will dive in deeper on those games as well. Aaron Prendergast, a good friend of mine behind Gaelic Games Fan TV, says some weekend after the Ulster counties, all of them won, barring Fermanagh, and even at that, they didn't get beat by Meath. That's exactly it. I mean, when you think about it, that Fermanagh were so hotly tipped to lose that game, a lot of people would have backed Meath to follow on from their Tailteann Cup success and get that victory in the opening day in Division 2. And Fermanagh just had other plans. And not only did they draw that game, they probably should have won it. And it will be a game that Kieran Donnelly would be sitting there thinking, we probably left that behind us. They were 3 points up with 10 minutes to go. If they could have closed it out, it would have been great. But at the end, Meath had the shot to win it from Maurice Brosnan. Sorry, so not from Maurice Brosnan. He's the next tweet we're going for. Meath had that shot to win it from Matthew Costello, apologies, and it didn't reach the target. But if it had have, Meath would have been sitting here with a win, and maybe Ulster wouldn't be able to say that, but it's undeniably an extremely impressive opening weekend for the Ulster counties. And the one that everybody had the eye on, obviously, was Monaghan when it came to that result. Monaghan going to Croke Park and beating Dublin. And this tweet from Maurice Brosnan is really interesting. Since the famous Donegal ambush of 2014, Dublin have only conceded 3 goals twice. In 2022, it was to Monaghan. That was the day that Monaghan actually relegated Dublin when they beat them 3-13 to 1-18. Obviously, Jack McCarron with the infamous winner. And then this year, when they went to Croke Park and won by 3-9 to 1-14. And that is it. Monaghan just seemed to have this uber confidence against Dublin when it goes into league. Dublin haven't beaten Monaghan since, in the league anyway, since 2017. Like, that's a remarkable record that Monaghan have had when Dublin have been the team. Like, Monaghan beat them in the league when Dublin won the All-Ireland in 2018, 2019, 2020. Monaghan never lost to Dublin in the league in those games. And in 2020, Dublin fought back to the draw, but Monaghan dominated that game, especially the first half. And their uber confidence against Dublin is admirable. Like, they go to Croke Park, they don't fear them in any way, shape or form. And as Matthew said on our weekend review, check that out if you haven't already. It's a really good episode. Monaghan are an inspiration to their counties. Like, they really, really are an inspiration to their counties. They are a prime example of what you can do with the population that you have. They churn out quality player after quality player. Like, the reality is they had no Conor McManus, no Darren Hughes, no Kieran Hughes. Like no Carl Gallagher, no Rory Began from the game that they played against Dublin last year in the semi-final, and they still won. And look, I know that Dublin were missing certain players, but not actually that many when you look at Dublin's team. They still had Brian Fenton in there. They still had Jack McCaffrey in there. And Monaghan got the victory. So it's a massive, massive result for them. Aaron Prendergast says off the back of that, not too disappointed with this defeat in all honesty. We know Dublin will prioritise themselves like they did for the championship last year. Fair play to Monaghan though. They have once again proved that they have more than what it takes to compete at the highest level. And look, nobody should doubt that in any way, shape or form at this stage. Monaghan have proved themselves years ago. But the reality is that it's like they continue to defy the odds over and over and over and over again. You're thinking surely this pool of golden generation players is eventually going to dry up. It doesn't look like it's going to. It looks like they're just going to carry on into a new team. And they were outstanding in this game. Stephen O'Hanlon's performance was genuinely unbelievable. Unbelievable performance by Stephen O'Hanlon. He just showed leadership that we haven't really seen from him before. He's always been a very, very good player, but he really stepped up and was a captain on the field for Monaghan in that victory at Croke Park. And look, Aaron saying that, yeah, I do agree with him to a point. I agree with him that, yeah, Dublin will prioritise the championship, but if we don't, cop on and take the league seriously, we will get relegated again. I mean, we're going away to Mayo next weekend in Castlebar. Mayo beat Galway in week 1. They're going to be right up for Dublin coming down. No way are they going to take it easy on Dublin. And then if Mayo beat Dublin, Dublin are suddenly on back-to-back defeats and really looking over their shoulder at potential relegation again, which would be extraordinary if they suffered back-to-back relegations in 2 consecutive Division 1 campaigns. It would be extraordinary. Now, a team that got off to a great start as well, another Ulster team, was Tyrone. They beat Roscommon in Healy Park in Oma. And a funny tweet here from Colin Parkinson, Smaller Fish GAA, big shout out. He says this: death, taxes and Hampsey off the outside of the right. And that was Paddy Hampsey opened Tyrone's account with a beautiful score off the outside of his right foot. And I mean, that is the iconic Paddy Hampsey point. I mean, the most iconic time that he did it was no doubt when he did it against Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. That was when all of Tyrone's full back line scored in the first half. It was an incredible opening to the game by Tyrone. But yeah, he really shone. Himself and Michael McKernan have become the cornerstones of that Tyrone defence with the retirement of Ronan McNamee. Michael McKernan moved out to 6. I'd be interested to see how he continues with that position going forward in the year. But yeah, McKernan played really well. I mean, he really showed the warrior side of himself. He got the knock. He had to switch jersey. He had the tissues up his nose, and he still was launching attacks, flying forward for Tyrone. And when we're talking about flying forwards for Tyrone, Joe Brolly's next tweet sums it up pretty well. What fun it is watching Dara Canavan play football. And that is like, Dara Canavan is just one of those absolutely gorgeous footballers to watch. He is just so talented, so skillful. He's able to improvise and adapt to get out of certain situations. I mean, you look at his point against, I think it was Armagh in the championship last year, where he ducked down under a tackle, emerged out and shot over the bar. It was an absolutely extraordinary score, and it proved exactly just what he's capable of, that just when you think you have him, he emerges out and finds a different way out of the tackle. He's an extraordinary Gaelic footballer, and he was in flying form. 8 points against Roscommon, and the better form he is in, the better news it is for Tyrone, and the worse news it is for everybody else. But for neutrals, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute delight to watch him play. Now, on top of that, Jim McGuinness's return was also going to be a massive, massive thing that everybody was looking at this weekend. And we have a tweet here from Cahar O'Kane, which talks about it. Colin, Jurgen Klopp was the best thing that could have ever happened to English football. Never mind Liverpool. And Jim McGuinness, Donegal have an insider with the same charisma. Is he really prepared to gegenpress his way to success? And that's it. We saw something that we weren't 100% expecting in the Donegal versus Cork game. And that was Donegal pushing up on Cork to a level that we haven't seen any team really do in a long, long time. Like, Donegal were so aggressive, uber aggressive, in the way that they hunted in packs. They pushed right up on Cork. Cork were really struggling to get the ball out of their defence at pretty much any stage of that game. And Donegal have the label of being defensive. A lot of teams have it in their mind. A lot of fans, casual fans, have it in their minds that Donegal are a defensive team. And it's mainly based off of that 2011 Ulster semi-final that 2011 All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin, which is one of the most notorious games in Gaelic football history. But the reality is Donegal are not a defensive team, and already now they're not an offensive team. They are a team that will do whatever it takes, in my opinion, to win. So if they come up against a team where they need to be defensive, they will. If they come up against a team that need to be offensive, they will. Jim McGuinness will have them ready to go whichever way they need to go in order to find success. He will do anything to get the victory. And like the title of his book sums that up, Until Victory Always. Like, this is just a guy who just will not accept second best, will not accept the silver medal. And that's why Donegal need him back in the job, because they really, really were terrible last season. And already the swagger is back. You see the points that Kieran Thompson kicked, Ryan McHugh kicked, Oran Doherty kicked. The confidence is running through the veins of those Donegal players once again. Now, there was also the controversy, Con Kilpatrick's red card against Tyrone. Obviously, Colin Parkinson and many others have stated that they don't think it was a red card. I don't think it was a red card as well. David Murray kind of ducks his head in, and it looks worse than I think it actually is. And he gets sent off. And it's one of those things that then, for other tackles that are relatively similar, we don't see the red card. And that's where the frustration comes in for a lot of GAA fans, because it's like we need consistency across the board so that players and teams know what challenges to not do. And VAR and a TMO has kind of been suggested by a lot of people as a potential way out, as a potential future. Peter Canavan stated on the Sunday game that he was completely opposed to that. And also Colin Parkin said it as well, backed him up. Canavan is right as usual. I take the odd wrong decision from a referee than importing a VAR circus. This is not even a talking point to me. No. Stop talking about VAR, please. And I mean, it is one of those things that when you see how it did slow down the Premier League games and how all of a sudden the tiniest little details are being looked at, and a goal had to be spick and span, like crystal clean to stand. It's one of those things that the GAA does have a lot of rules that people do break all the time. And the main one that I didn't even think about, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't even really fully bring it into consideration when I was discussing my suggestions for a TMO, is the steps. Everybody breaks steps. Everybody genuinely watch a game of Gaelic football the next time and count every time just for 30 seconds that someone gets the ball. They always take 5-6 steps. So that means if a goal is scored, it's very likely somebody took too many steps along the way. And that could change the entire perplexion of the game. The Sunday Game put up an Instagram post literally just half an hour ago before we recorded this episode talking about the TMO, and I'm reading it from their caption here. So big shout out to that account. Follow it if you don't. But to be honest, if you're a GAA fan, that's one of the first accounts you should follow. Sunday Game said, further feedback is to be requested from referees as the prospect of the GAA introducing a television match official TMO looks to be a distant one for now. A work group set up by GAA President Larry McCarthy at Congress 2023 presented preliminary findings on the use of TMO in Gaelic games to Central Council at the weekend, but further feedback will be sought before a final report is published. Following the silent trial use of the video technology in last year's championship, RT Sport understands that there is no immediate prospect of the GAA exploring the TMO option further anytime soon. Conclusions found that the flow of a GAA game could be severely interrupted, with the TMO possibly having to judge instance on the number of steps players took without releasing the ball within seconds of each other. And that is it. When you're talking about a goal, how far back do you go? If it was a counter-attack, do you go to when the first player got their hands on the ball? And if he took 5 steps, do you rule out the goal? It is one of those things that it looks too difficult to nail down a proper solution. And it's one thing that we do have to bear in mind going forward. Look, in my mind, there should be replays introduced for certain things, like the Joe Sheridan goal, Meath and Loud, is the most obvious one. That will always be there. The Shane Walsh free against Derry is a perfect example of how it could work. But when you're talking about looking at the amount of steps that the player is taking, the game will be severely delayed. But one thing the GAA can get right, as pointed out by Adam Staunton here, is do the GAA have any intentions of fixing the one glaring issue with the black card? A teammate can go down holding their head and waste several minutes while the sin bin clock keeps ticking. It's absurd. And it's absolutely spot on. That's absolutely spot on. And I'm no doubt he's talking about the Kieran McFall black card and Derry wasted a few minutes. It's so stupid. And you've noticed that from the get-go, that clock should stop. That clock should stop of the player going off. Like, you shouldn't be able to go, oh, all of a sudden I have a leg injury and waste 5 minutes, and then your teammate comes back on in 5 minutes less time than they should be off the field for. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it has been like that since the get-go. The GA should stop the clock anytime there's a stop in play. Not the sin bin clock even. The whole clock. I've been banging on about this for years. How many times are you in a stadium and you hear additional time at least 2 minutes, additional time at least 3 minutes, and there's people around you going, oh, for God's sake, that's not enough time, or that's too much time, or whatever. If you had a countdown clock, it's undisputed. And if that countdown clock stopped every time the ball went out of play, every time a substitution had to be made, every time there was a free kick and a stoppage in the game, then that time is undisputed. In the LGFA, there is no complaints whatsoever about how much time was left or how much time was given, because it's a robot clock. That's how much time you have. It's the same thing in basketball. Why are we carrying on with this? How many times have we seen scores in the 7th minute of injury time when only 5 minutes of injury time was announced and nobody knows how much time is left? I would do this. This is my permanent solution to this. A countdown clock which stops every single time that there is a stoppage in play. So time wasting becomes pretty much pointless as well. And on top of that, once the hooter goes, it's then the rugby style where you have to put the ball out of play to end the game. So when the hooter goes, you get one more play. And then once that ball goes out, that's that. And I think that's the perfect way to do it, because nobody could have any disputes about the timekeeping, and it would take that massive chunk of responsibility off the referees as well. That's something that the GA need to implement. Now, another massive, massive positive out of the weekend here was the goalkeeping of Killian Roach. Least GA shot stopper nominated for GA's Player of the Week. He was absolutely outrageously good, Killian Roach. He scored 5 points, and 3 of those points were from play. Like, just absolutely extraordinary. We've seen Ethan Rafferty came out and scored 2 points against Tyrone, obviously, in the qualifiers a couple of years ago. Like, it's absolutely incredible that we have goalkeepers coming out now kicking 3 points from play, 5 points in total. It's absolutely extraordinary. It's been taken to a new level. You saw Oran Lynch spent most of the game against Kerry in the half-forward line. Like, that's the way it's gone. And it's absolutely, it's a real excitement added to the game, in my opinion, because when a goalkeeper loses the ball, there's pandemonium around the place, because there's still that feeling of need to get the goalkeeper back. And Conor Gainey's goal against Derry for Kerry was a perfect example of how it can go wrong, but Killian Roach's example was a perfect example of how it can go right. Now, in the LGFA over the weekend, Niamh O'Sullivan retired in front of the Port Talton crowd as Meath beat Dublin in the LGFA League Division 1. So here Killian Whelan says, great to see a county give one of their retiring female stalwarts a huge ovation. Niamh O'Sullivan has the Port Talton crowd on their feet. Too often our female GA players slip away from the game with minimal fuss. Really should be more recognition for them. I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with what Killian Whelan has said there. The reality is that with the viewership figures going up and Little doing the get behind the fight, which, by the way, the crowd at Port Talton was massive. The crowd at Parnell Park was big as well for the Dublin-Kerry game. The Get Behind the Fight campaign by Little has been fantastic. The launch was brilliant. And it's really, really working. Like, the crowds are definitely building up. Little is an amazing sponsor to the LGFA. They absolutely have nailed it so far with this. And it's great to see Niamh O'Sullivan get the recognition that she deserves for an incredible career that she's had. Like, her point against Dublin in the 2021 All-Ireland final was such a clutch score. It turned out to be Meath's final point of that All-Ireland final, and it pretty much got them over the line because it made Dublin need to go for a goal. And like, it's just an incredible career that she's had, from where Meath were to back-to-back All-Ireland senior titles. Absolutely extraordinary career. And I'm delighted for Niamh that she got to retire in front of a packed-out Port Talton, a real legend in the game. Now, to cap it off, inside the 25 minutes on a real happy note, Conor Glass, the man that can do no wrong, is now engaged. So Colleen Duffy says, what a week it's been for Conor Glass and All Ireland with Waddy Graham's Glen, beating Kerry in their own backyard with Derry, and he's just got engaged also. An absolute legend. Like, I mean, there you go. Niamh is a Trillic GA native, I believe. Congratulations to them both. So, like, the Derry-Tyrone rivalry, I mean, Mickey Hart going to Derry, Conor Glass and Niamh marrying as well. It's stuff we love to see. And for Conor Glass, I mean, the man that can do no wrong, what a couple of weeks he's had. Beating Kerry in their own backyard. He scored the opening point in that game. His performance in the All-Ireland Club final will go down in history. It was absolutely one of the best performances you'll ever see in an All-Ireland final. And now he's just got engaged. I mean, the man can do no wrong. He really can. Now, so that is the end of Social Media Reacts episode 2. I've ran through all the tweets for next week's episodes. Guys, if you're watching, if there's anything you want me to cover on next week's, just throw it in the comments and I'll make sure to get around to it on the next week's episode as well. This episode was once again brought to you by Capture Athletics. Massive shout out to the lads there. If you need any sportswear gear, get on to them for 2024 and beyond. That's the episode, guys. Thank you so much to anybody who tuned in. And until the next one, take care.